Hello, my friends. This is Lada from AstroladaOfficial. I'm so excited again to have as my guest your favorite teacher, anthroposophist, spiritual guide, Teo. Hello, Teo.
Hello, Lada. Thank you for having me again.
We have to continue a topic that we started a couple of months ago, the topic about karma, past lives, incarnations. People were so fascinated. We had thousands and thousands of views, hundreds of comments, and we continue this topic to clarify it further because it's topic without ending. Past lifetimes, how they affect us now. I'll put a link below for people who want to watch the first video because it's incredible. It's full of information you won't find in the usual new age. It's not at all new age. It's based on deep esoteric philosophical spiritual studies, nothing channeled from Bashar or new age or whatever. This is the essence of the Western esoteric tradition. Think Saint Germain, think I mean not the ones that they channel nowadays on every YouTube channel. Think Parsifal, think this is the anthroposophical tradition. You can tell us a bit more about that. So I give you the word, Theo. And
Yeah,
if you want to contact Theo, I'm putting a link below for his profile. I'm putting a link below also for courses. He has a course on the foundations of the cosmology of the world based on the Western esoteric system, which is more profound and way more scientifically explainable than Eastern one. And I don't want to make people here fighting. The Eastern one was given to us thousands of years ago for a different kind of thinking and a different kind of consciousness. This one is for the new, more scientific humanity, scientifically thinking. So you have the word there.
thank you. I just want to wish everyone Happy New Year and, like we say in Bulgaria, for many years, which means I wish you health. Um, I want to begin this with a big apology from the previous conversation that we had because I mentioned when I was explaining karma, I said that spiritual beings above us are not influenced by karma. But after that, I did some research, and it's not true. It actually, all the spiritual beings, angels, archangels, archon, etc., are influenced by the karmic. The law of karma also works for them, even though they're not reincarnating. It works for them if they, let's say, an angel turns into a Luciferic angel, then he also is going to have to redeem his actions. After that, I browsed through mostly all of the comments and I took notes to see what people didn't like and where they said, "Oh, I don't agree with Teo," and etc. I just want to clarify, I'm not saying these things. These things are by spiritual teachers guiding Europe and the world, and they are for the last, I think, from from the coming of Christ. These are laws that occult schools like the Templars, the Freemasons, the Rosicrucians, the Bogomils, the Cathars, and etc. They knew these things and they incorporated them into society. And there was a need for us to forget the knowledge of karma and reincarnation. That's why it's not freely available because it needed to disappear from people's minds. So we kind of discover our ego. And then when we have developed the ego since the year 13, 14, we started regaining the consciousness about past lives. So it's a super complicated topic. That's like a spider web, which is 4D spider web. And you hear me saying some facts or some information, but it has so much behind it that if you hear something, you say, "Well, that's not entirely it." You're right, because there's a lot more. I'm just giving a snapshots about the knowledge of reincarnation and karma, and you can just check out Rudolf Steiner. He has hundreds of lectures about reincarnation and karma, and you can dive deeply into more specific aspects. So the first topic that was negatively commented was about the reincarnation of animals. And
People are very upset.
because they have animals, and some people said Teo doesn't have an animal, that's why he talks like that. Actually, I
Show
just
us your
thought
cat. Show us your cat.
that's my cat there in the corner. So I do have an animal, and my child loves it, but she has a name, and we know that she has a soul,
She
but we
has
know
no
that,
soul. What do you
but she doesn't reincarnate in the same law like we do. And I'm going to give an example here. I have a lot of notes, so I kind of show people from old tradition. It was actually an Egyptian tradition with the cats, and in Indian traditions with the cows and other very precious animals for them, that the teachers and priests were teaching students about the transmigration of the soul. What is this? What is the transmigration of the soul? I'm going to read a passage now. Those priests were saying, you should live in such a way that you are not embodied in the animal, says the teaching. But this teaching never speaks of the physical life. That's a metaphor. They're speaking about the higher life. And what it wanted was nothing else than to induce people on earth to live in such a way that they need not to form the animal form after death in Kamaloka. That means that, let's say, if someone eats a lot of pork, but a lot, his astral body is starting to misform, misshape. And when this person goes into the spiritual world, he needs to review his life, and he starts reviewing the animal's consciousness, and because he's eating, he's devouring that consciousness,
Mhm.
he's starting to imitate it. And those people start develop characteristics of a cat, and they start appearing as cats, but in the Kamaloka.
By
Because
the way, when you eat pork, you become a cat.
no, sorry, I mean, that was another example. You become a piggy,
But
but it means that your astral body just shapes in the form because he's trying to reflect on your way of living beforehand. And it's because our thinking, feeling, and willing, when we go into the spiritual world, they separate. The thinking in the spiritual world becomes a will. So if you were devouring something, you do it with your will. So it turns into your thinking when you go into the spiritual world, and then it reflects in your future incarnation. And again, this is a very plainly said. It's much more complex than that.
that's why,
And
like they say, a lot of people had near-death experiences, and they say, sometimes when they go to those most scary places, they say, we know these souls of humans, but they have animal-like shapes, half human, half animal, because in the astral, whatever your thoughts were, if you're base, living on your base instincts, and you adopt in the astral more animalistic shape. Is that?
yeah, yeah. And this is why they talk about vegetarianism in spiritual practices, because the human is a very complicated being, and when a human becomes to live like a vegetarian, there are many things to consider. With everything we consume, animal, plant, mineral, we take into ourselves the spiritual forces that have formed them. And if another example, if we eat a bull on a cow, we take into ourselves the forces that were at work in the beings at that moment. And what the bull felt out of the series of the progressive being, which means that the bull has its own evolutionary process, and we are taking that in the evolutionary process of the being. And at the moment that this bull stopped and formed as a shape, then we stopped there as a formation. But because we are humans, we continue with that formation. But when we reflect in the spiritual world, it continues to say, well, let's see what we need to evaluate from our life. And if we have that clarity from being vegetarians, we are reviewing the etheric forces which don't have negative emotions because of the death of the animal. And the etheric body of the plant actually freely gives us life and energy and love, because the etheric body is the body of love.
Mm.
So this is part of the transmigration of the soul, how the soul being within the astral body actually shapes, and it's something that the soul doesn't want to regress into the past animal development that we actually gave to the animal world. The animals came out from the fact that when the human body developed, there were certain souls that regressed, and let's say the monkey, it regressed, but it regressed from the spiritual evolution of a human being. So actually, not the human developed out of animals, but the animals regressed thanks to the human's evolution. And a good example of that is the snake. When the snake sheds its skin, she didn't develop from the skin, but the skin left out from the snake. And it's something like that with
Yes.
the animals.
And they basically left the shapes, just like you grow up and you kind of don't need certain things anymore. But basically, what the humans kept developing spiritually or whatever, or evolution, and certain shapes and body forms, they were not fit anymore for for the ensoulment of human souls, and instead they animal souls started ensouling them. Is that what it is? And then these different species came out of it. So it's exactly the opposite of what Darwinism tells us.
Yeah,
But people think like, well, dinosaurs were way before the humans. That's more like the human shape was from the astro and etheric, wasn't it? We're not
yeah,
talking about physical humans.
yeah,
That-
yes,
yeah.
yes. So actually, the humans were not yet incarnated in a physical body because they were waiting for a specific physical shape to be able to arise. And the first test was the penguins, the parrots, and the animals which actually erected themselves, and the monkeys, of course.
Oh,
Um,
really? That's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah, and the parrot because of the larynx. It was the one of the only animals that actually could pronounce and replicate words
Well, the dinosaurs are a different evolutionary thing altogether.
completely.
So they have nothing connected to human.
They do. It's nowadays the new spirituality that's talking about the reptilian brains and the reptilians. And actually, a reptilian comes again from Lucifer and with the snake. And it's because our brain has different evolutionary stages. And the first one is actually reptilian. The second one is the mammalian, which is the mammal. And the third one is the neural cortex. So the reptilians are the ones that are super basic consciousness, but super basic, which is eating, making love for reproduction, and just finding somewhere to sleep because they didn't even need warmth. The reptilian development, it was cold-blooded. Uh, so we have parts from them in our evolution, but it's the very, very basic one.
So even their shape, astral shape, was secreted as a leftover from the human astral shape and condensed into physical animals later on.
Yes, and the lizard family and
But
the
we were
crocodile.
always, with according to Western esoteric tradition, human souls are always from the very beginning with the evolution of Earth. They were basically billions and billions, but never in physical. In physical, only recently in the last few million years. But they
Yeah,
were always in the astral substance developing, and from there exuding, letting go of older shapes or shapes that no longer, and astral substances that no longer are useful for them, and those became the astral substances for the animals and for their physical body later on.
yeah. And
That's
this is why what you mentioned, this is why people cannot find bones of Atlanteans or Lemurians or etc. because they didn't have the physical structure of a bone like. They were very, let's say the Atlanteans, they were roaming into the etheric because everything was just watery substance. There was not,
like cartilage based.
yes, like albumin. Um, so that's why if it it degraded very quickly. That's why we cannot find these parts of.
There's still some fossilized somewhere, I bet.
Yeah, probably in zone 51. Um,
So
and
we're like parents to the animals. They're our babies, but we're eating them, and we're
yeah, right. And I'm guessing that's why we have now domesticated animals like cats, dogs, even some people have snakes and etc. Taking care of them and again finding the connection. And it's very interesting because people who have lived, let's say you have a dog since you are 30 until you're 55, and this dog just is with you. This is how we help animals develop. So in future, they develop a personality. So that's an evolutionary process for them. Because with dogs, it's super specific. There's many kinds of many breeds, and people are actually individualizing the dog animal soul because that's one of the first wild wolves, then turning into a dog, then the dog into many different species. And when people live from their whole life, they're kind of giving it a cycle. They're showing it what's personality, what's have a different taste, what you have different tasks. And they're really learning from us how to actually become personalities. There is a
like
very good,
nations, like humans.
yeah, which will come, I think, in many ages in the
But
future.
so basically, just like the angels, archangels archive from their essence, which is not physical, it's very high. The souls of the humans were secreted at the
Yes.
humans. The same way the animal souls and human and forms come from the humans. Uh, and and one time in the future, sometime in the future, when we've turned into angels at that level, the animals will become humans,
Yeah.
but not
That's
similar. It's not going to be
mm,
the same
no,
repetition. It will be on a different.
no.
But
But so
can you tell me something? Because I remember one story. Must have been Saduno. There was horses that were lined up, and his students were walking through there, and they all lined up. And when they were playing Panurithmi, the sacred dance, all the horses rounded them up and lined up, like saluting and watching. And Master Bin Saduno said, because of this respect that they gave, and in the next lifetime they'll be reborn like humans. But is that possible to have exceptions? So maybe he means that in the eons, maybe 100,000 years from now, when it's time for them, they won't need to come back as animals anymore.
it's interesting because it's always the horses around the teacher or the bears. He speaks about these two animals very frequently, but there always has been horses when he was showing his students something. And Rudolf Steiner speaks about the 12 animals related to the zodiac, and the horse is on the highest. He is the one that they are the one that helped develop the ego sense because of the Sagittarius, half horse, half animal. It's the one who holds the ego, and they are very strong. They are kind of a Mars animal. And if we connect through those Tanner and Bin Saduno here, horses might be one of the animals who are going to be on the first line of developing a personality because they are very ego-like. You know, the Mustang. They're always like, "This is my place."
They have
Uh,
the strongest, because to become human, you need to have ego. That's what they
yeah,
love, the animals.
yeah, yeah.
The I, individual consciousness of I am realization, I am this. Okay.
But and I also think this because Ben Saduno talks that when the sixth race comes, animals will be much lower in quantity. So I don't think it's yet time to for that because what Ben Sadono, when he says 1 year, he might mean it in a different sense. Might mean one age, which is 2000 years. So I'm sure that he doesn't mean in 50 years you're going to be reborn as a human.
Oh, it says next time they'll come like humans. So
Yeah,
maybe when it's time for this. So we don't like what you're trying to explain now. Humans can be reborn like my daughter says, I want to be a cat in my next life. This doesn't happen. But you can come back as a more lowly human with more
yeah,
animal-like behaviors or more
yeah.
high. Well, animals still they can't turn into a human reincarnation, but do they incarnate? That's what people want to know the most. Do they come back?
Animals.
Yes.
It's, I don't want to say no, so I'm not going to say no. It's last time I kind of described it very well. If you have one plant, once it's one seed, it came from one seed, but it has many roots. This plant has many roots. So the soul of the horses has many representatives, like the animal, like the plant has roots. So every physical expression of an animal is part of that root. So this plant to reincarnate again, it needs to come from a different seed. And that's a metaphor now. I hope you guys are getting that. So it will come as a different reincarnation only when it develops further. So not in the sense they don't reincarnate in the sense that human beings do, because they have a common individuality. And again, it kind of doesn't matter if you believe it or you want it to be like that. These are things that are beyond me just voicing them out.
That's, I think it's beyond our ability to understand. That's why we get upset because we look at the animal. It has a personality. It has love. It feels feelings. But this is not what you call individual ego.
Yeah.
Okay.
To be honest,
But
Rudolf
so,
Steiner
yeah.
Rudolf Steiner says that plants, all the kinds of plants that you guys know about, and there are thousands, those plants are under the jurisdiction of only 7 souls, because the complexity of the plant is much lower than the complexity of a human being. And then only 7 souls and spirits are actually able to manage all of them on Earth.
Some
So it's
angels of some sort, I suppose.
no, a like the level of a human soul.
Okay, so complicated. So beyond my
Yeah,
scope to
yeah.
comprehend.
It's we're gonna have that for another video, but I hope we kind of broad strokes, like someone said that in the comments. Those are really broad strokes, and a person needs to take that idea, live with it for 6 months, and then say that's not true.
Mm.
Live with that concept for a while, and if it develops, it's fine. If it doesn't develop, it's fine again.
So, like when animals die and their soul goes and joins this higher being, that it's individuality, which is actually it's way more conscious than animals are. And a lot of
Yeah,
people they describe when you speak with the spirit of a horse, which is the collective of this species of horses of the species of, they say they're way more intelligent than humans,
yeah,
but they're not. It's but their soul splits in say 500 horses or five
yeah,
and insouls them through the instincts through the but after when they die they join this collective soul. But why
yeah,
do people when they die cross the rainbow bridge, all the dead animals meet them, all the animals that they domesticate? Is it an aspect that the spirit of the higher consciousness of the animal species sends to the person who just died and gone into the astro, into the higher world, so they can, I don't know, to reconnect with the pet that they had? If you've listened to past life to uh, near death experiences, almost everyone, if they had a pet, the pet meets them there.
Oh, really? Well, I'm only guessing that it's between the relationship of that. They do have a very important relationship, the human and the animal representative, because that you've seen 101 Dalmatians. It's a human looks like the dog that he owns, or the other way around, because if you are a person if you're a farmer who grows cows, cows have a specific relationship to the human's development. And when a person is born and he needs to learn from the cow, he's actually learning a spiritual quality. And that's why he actually trying to gain from that. He's developing himself. If you have a parrot, you're learning about the different quality that the parrot brings, because all the entire organ system, all the glands, all the intestines and things are there is one animal who is super specialized in every organ or soul quality that we have. Let's take the cow, is the intestines, is the digestion.
Mhm.
And when a person lives and helps and breeds animals of that kind, he is developing his organ system. Probably in the previous life, he was thinking too much, and now he needs to bring himself to the will. And then he needs to develop the qualities of that animal. So he makes a relationship with the quality that that's so representative of the animal is actually giving to the world. And the animal is always taking one thing from the human because the human is the only representative on earth from the ego individuality. But we sometimes need to have a cat, and that means we're bringing something to our feeling. If we have a parrot, so we need to speak out more. Or if there are two parrots, I forgot how they're called, we need to be more social, and etc. and etc. etc.
So tell us the most common animals, cat and dog. What do they, just like we give them a part of our individuality and help them for the future to have an ego, what, why are we having cats and dogs? Like some people are very drawn to cats, others to dogs. What does it mean for them in this incarnation?
So those are the two, the male and the female energy, the sensitivity of the cat, and the opening the heart realm and being calmer because the breathing of the cat is the best. It has the best ratio from all the animals in the world. That's
Really?
why they're murring. Yeah, they're. If you go and try to hit the cat with a newspaper, she kind of goes down. But after 1 second, when you lift up the paper, she's calm.
So
She
cool.
so quickly gets calm and her breathing harmonizes. And also the touch and the sensitivity of the touch and of the heart. Those are the main things that people with cats are either need to be calm or they're usually super calm because there is no rule that because you have a dog means that you need dog's qualities. It could be because you have so much dog qualities that you bring more.
So it's
Yeah.
either because you don't have this energy much, or because you're so either too similar or too opposite. That's
Yeah. Yeah.
so I really feel drawn to cats because I have very hectic energy and cats are calming for me. And
Yeah.
the feminine energy, slow down, recover quickly from emotional. Wow,
Yeah.
makes so much sense. Remember, cat found me and became my cat 2001 after I had COVID and developed intense anxiety. I couldn't calm down the smallest sound and I couldn't breathe for hours after that. This cat just came and started lying next to my head and it would want to be close to my head. And it was alive and stayed with me till I healed for 7, 8 months, then God took her away. But it
Yeah.
was incredible how had calming effect on my nervous system. And wow, what about dogs?
Those are related to the mind more, to people who need to have more activity, playfulness, and loyalty. Dogs are very loyal and very trusting, and they would die for you. I mean, a cat wouldn't, but a dog would give its own life for the master. So those qualities are very helping. So you need to go up every morning and every evening to go out to give it. So they're trying to move your life when the cat is actually trying to slow down your life to kind of
Oh,
keep you calm.
it's true. So if you're stuck in your life, maybe a dog will help you get
Yeah, if
unstuck
you're
and move things.
a melancholic or a phlegmatic would use a dog. A sanguine and a choleric would use a cat.
I totally understand now. Okay.
Or
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 very similar because their energies mesh and they like likes attracts likes, or likes birds of feather flock together, does.
yeah, yeah. So those were the main ones. And it's very interesting because that biodynamic agriculture speaks about the 12 animals and the relationship to the human being and the quality that they gives. And it's so interesting because it gives you this big relationship. So there is no disrespect to animals in the previous video.
Yes, absolutely. Hopefully, I think this video, people, especially in America, it's huge. The culture there to have pets, to have animals is huge there. So thank you. You're doing a lot for to uplifting our little creations, our little brothers and sisters.
Yeah, yeah.
This shows you how special they are and our role and their role in our lives.
And from my notes that I prepared, I have 10 or 15 points on how karma expresses in life. But just to give a little overview from the overall picture, there is two tendencies that the evil forces are trying to bring us. One is from Ahriman and Lucifer, of course. Ahriman's trying to make people immortal by supplementation, by fasting, by being a robot and transferring your consciousness into whatever, a computer or chip. And Lucifer is trying to say, oh, the physical life is not important. We just need to go back. We are angels. Just go into the spiritual world and never incarnate. And that's why Christ comes as the law of karma. I mean, the karma has been before Christ came, but he was there in the spiritual world. So humanity, when thanks to Lucifer, we incarnate into physical bodies, immediately karma needs to take form and shape somehow.
Or else we will not come back.
Exactly. Or else we will turn into Luciferian creatures, or we will stay, because in the Bible, in the Old Testament, it says, and Adam lived for 1,000 years, and he had children, and his children lived for 900, and their children lived for 700. And actually, they didn't mean that they really lived for 900 years. They meant that they are, uh, let's say, Adam. When someone says Adam, first it means the Adam personality, and then it meant the family of Adam, who lived 9 generations, because then we didn't have the personality. So Christian or Ivan or Peter were not very important. It was important their whole lineage of individuality. And slowly, with the coming of Moses and Abraham, people start individualizing, and that's why they start in the Bible. It said they lived for 100 years, for 80 years, and etc. Because the individualization process started, and it was important who was that individuality and not the lineage of the whole family.
This is fascinating because also Rudolf Steiner says that when he talks about Noah, Adam, 900 years, he said that back then uh, we was giving memories to each other just by being born to a father.
Yeah,
You carried all the memories of that father. So we have very
exactly.
different consciousness. We're talking, I
Mm,
know, hundreds of thousands of years looking back,
mm,
not six, I don't know exactly the time, but it's so you, if you were like the great, 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 great grandson of someone, you'd have all their memories because it was passed through the blood until the
yeah,
blood got etherized and more individualized. So this stopped, kind
yeah.
of.
And that's how the freedom came, because humans were not super free when everything was going through the blood. That's why the Hebrew are controlling the world, because it's important their blood to be their relatives and
But
etc.
it's not
etc.
true anymore. It doesn't
Yeah,
work this way anymore.
yeah, it
Memory is
doesn't.
not transferred through the blood anymore. Yes, there is, you still carry some kind of karma of your family, but 4 generations back only now.
Yeah,
And you can change it because you have your individual ego much more incarnated, so you can change things with free will.
yeah. And I'm just gonna read from the Bible. Rudolf Steiner mentions the times when Christ, with him being the Lord of Karma, which I think from the year 2000, from the year 33 AD, no longer Saturn is the Lord of Karma, but it's the Christ and the Sun, which is very curious when someone looks into astrology. And an example for how Christ speaks about karma and how he acts is in Mark 5:21, when Jesus raises a dead girl and heals a sick woman. I'm going to read the paragraph because it's super interesting if someone uh, gazes through the words. So, when Jesus had again crossed over by boat to the other side of the lake, a large crowd gathered around him while he was by the lake. Then one of the synagogue leaders named Jairus, who was an initiate, by the way, came, and when he saw Jesus, he fell at his feet. He pleaded earnestly with him, "My little daughter is dying. Please come and put your hands on her so that She will be healed and live. So Jesus went with him. A large crowd followed and pressed around him. And a woman was there who had been subjected to bleeding for 12 years. She had suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors and had spent all she had. Yet instead of getting better, she got worse. When she heard about Jesus, she came up behind him, crowd, and touched his cloak, because she thought, if just touch his clothes, I'll be healed. Immediately her bleeding stopped, and she felt in her body that she was freed from suffering. At once Jesus realized that he was touching, etc. So this is an example of a transmigration of spiritual forces being flipped. There was a dead girl who was raised from the dead, and a sick woman. The sick woman was actually super fertile, and she was bleeding because women bleed to give up a debt that they were in future give. What that means? A woman is the only being on earth that gives life, and that's a very big etheric process. You're bringing a being. So before, when you turn into a woman at 12, 14, when your astral body comes, you start bleeding. So because in future, you will do something super important. So you need to give up your debt for that. So after that, you are you're giving the present of being able to bring birth and life to the earth. So women actually bleed because of that spiritual, energetic possibility for them to do. And when that woman was super fertile by having more blood in her period than usual, she was able to give off a lot of etheric energy. And the dead girl that is being risen was actually 12-year-old. So that woman started bleeding when the other girl was born. So that was a karmic debt that she needed to pay.
So this
And her energy was taken away, and she actually was healed. And that energy was given to that girl.
to
And we
live,
can, sorry, yeah,
live.
to live. Yeah, to live. And if someone looks at the miracles that Christ is doing in the New Testament, they're all related of actually balancing the karma. That's why Archangel Michael is holding the scales, because he's balancing the karma of people
And
when they
now it's
die.
the sun doing this in astrology, like you said.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's the sun representing the Christ. I mean, of course it is. It could be a specific star, like Sirius. Everybody talks about Sirius. Um, but it's different. Saturn is doing the karma with the whip a little bit, when Christ is doing it with love and healing. That's why he's called the healer. Uh,
So that
so
that karma now for the last 2000 years, it's easier uh, to rebalance karma.
it's Rudolf Steiner gives a very good example. He says, if you have someone next to you that needs help, they say, "Oh no, that's your karma. Fuck off." But that's not how karma works. You can redeem someone's karma with love. So you go out and then you help him. And then that gives dharma for you a little bit in future life. If you're not doing it, like saying, I'm gonna help him out, so in the future I'm gonna be better. It's not gonna work. It's not gonna work out like that.
It's the motive, how you do.
Yeah, yeah. But it's the power of the moral ether that's developing in humanity in the next 3,000 years. Actually, there's going to be a new body, a new physical space, which is called the moral ether. And thanks to Christ, it's kind of is able to be developed. But actually, Buddha talked about it, and that's how he became a Buddha, because he found out the law of love and the law of karma, which Christ brings. It was actually given by Buddha, but only now it's being understood. And Christ showed how to do it. Buddha found it, but Christ showed it, and now it's being able to be practiced in the world.
So natural evolution never hurries. Like was saying, next year the Earth, fifth dimension, will be on the fifth. The Earth will split. Will be in the fifth dimension from December 20. God says, well, like one day of God is 1,000 years, and He says, I've got all the time in the world. So
Yeah.
proceeded 2,500 years ago with Buddha, then Christ showed it. Now, only now we're starting to understand the sacrifice, the forgiveness principle, the unconditional love, and not to understand it intellectually, not to do it yet.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. So that's an overview how Christ did the work then. There's a very good astrologer. Sorry, I forget his name now. He was an anthroposophist, astrologer, astrosophist, and he nailed almost the whole New Testament with everything that Christ did by date, by time, by the planets, how they were
Okay.
positioned, and why every miracle that he did, it was a very complex situation like the one that I just described. And it's super interesting when someone looks at it in that way. And then the Bible makes sense with all the metaphors and everything.
You have to tell me the name of this book.
Yeah, I have it. I have it on my shelf and I'll look it up and maybe we can
Maybe
put
we
it
can
in
write
the
it down for people, because Rudolf Steiner also says that for those 3 years that Christ consciousness was in the Christed being was incarnated in physical in Jesus, the human, while it was incarnated those 3 years, every second was astrologically was a every move, thought, word that Christ did or action was reflected in the stars as above as below
yeah,
in a perfect symmetry.
yeah. It's almost like with a friend we have a discussion. It's either he moved the planets, like I need this Jupiter to be there because that's God on Earth, or he knew
Everything
all the
was.
planets will be like that, so I'm coming exactly in that time. Why exactly at that time he was born? Because I mean, the egg or the chicken.
Not beyond our minds again.
Yeah. And with that, I'm gonna say just few facts now, because in the last video I mentioned, you said that you're not a good singer, so in a previous life you probably were a singer. Um,
It's the
people
opposite.
who were people who are good architects now, and left in next life, they will have great hearing, which is kind of super strange. This is directly from Rudolf Steiner. It has its explanations, but we don't need to go about it. I'm just gonna pinpoint some interesting facts. And if someone thinks about it enough, they'll actually start seeing, oh, that really makes sense. Yeah. Because how architecture, how you see things and how you shape and form the inner ear, I've really delved a lot of thoughts into it. And after a while thinking about it, you do connect with the concept given.
So this harmony that they create now and design transform through the mind in because you said that mental and spiritual energy in next life turns into the physical body, like you
Yeah.
talked. All this harmony, then they'll be born with a very well developed a hearing or
Yeah.
the vestibular here.
So you're making harmony in the physical world, and after that, you are hearing the harmony into the sound ether again, another place, another rabbit hole. Mathematicians and next slide have great eyesight, which is kind of more easy to to handle.
Definitely wasn't much different in a past lifetime. For sure.
And painters have gorgeous eyes. And this I completely can understand. I mean, you are making something beautiful into image, I mean, into colors. And after that, the things that sees colors is actually taking the shape and probably the coloring of something that's very beautiful. So one can see how our will and our doings are absolutely forming our body and our qualities.
Future.
Um, this is another word. People who ignore concepts of past lives, so who don't believe in karma, in futures may be tormented by the unclarity for how it became that they're in such a position in their present life. And when I was young, we had a quote like, why is this happening to me always? And this is people who are adults in their 40s and 50s and 30s. Some say, why am I in this position? Why am I? So they're kind of sensing that they did something in previous life to put them in that position. But because in their previous life they were completely ignorant, it kind of drives them crazy. It's not possible. Why am I in this position? It doesn't make any sense.
Even if they make
Be-
efforts now and do everything right, sometimes.
yeah. And this is because this is my last note that I'll jump over it. In future, so Rudolf Steiner says everyone will see karma and will believe in karma, but because it would be obvious, because we are now developing an organ near the speech organ, I think. It's going to be a gland. There it is. In future, we will develop an organ standing near the speech center in the brain. This organ will be an organ for exactly remembering past lives.
Okay.
And people who have not been exercising or haven't been good morally won't be able to use the organ freely, and they will develop certain sicknesses.
Oh.
And this is because it will be like you have the plus and the minus, and you will be switching these, and it will be like flickering. The person will have the organ, but it will not be healthily developed. So sometimes we'll say, "Oh, I see people, I see visions. What's happening here?" And they'll start calling him crazy. They'll start giving him pills. Actually, this has been happening for the last 60 years to certain individualities because they think they're going nuts
Mm-hmm.
because the organ is already present in some form and more in the etheric form. And if we don't realize that, it will makes us we'll be the strangers. We'll be like, what? There's nothing here. No, that doesn't exist. And we know that only for 40 years, people who are clairvoyants, they were being called crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're actually accepting their concepts. So this is actually present now for certain individualities, but it will be becoming more and more, and they'll start calling it nervous breakdowns, mentally disordered, and etc. Because the normal, this is the new normal for living in the matrix and in the system. It's how it needs to be. And when these people looked, people who are super intelligent will actually be people with clairvoyant faculties. They will be the talented. They will be the ones with uh, they will be the ones who are called clairvoyant because they're just very, very well developed. They're conscious.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not because they're super conscious and they're very spiritually developed, but because of our common society degrades. And that's how we are lifting up. We're consciously developing, not because we're super smart, but because the middle grounds are just getting lower and lower and lower. Uh, so this is something to be with open eyes about. Uh,
So you
and
think that more and more people will be born with these abilities to remember the past lifetimes, but what are the things that we can do to help this develop correctly, this organ?
it's it's just, the first thing is these outrageous concepts that I'm bringing or that Rudolf Steiner talks about, just to be open about them, not entirely to believe in them, but to be open about them. Then, let's say this concept has been given by an archangel, and if you open to it, then you're open to a consciousness of an archangel. If you say, "Oh, that's rubbish," then you're saying, "You archangel are stupid, and I don't believe in you." And then the forces say, okay, this plant is not working well, so we're not going to water it enough.
They shut
Because
off the growing of this organ in your astral body.
yeah, I mean, they never, because they love us so much, they never leave us,
Mm.
but they say, okay, this guy's not ready, he needs to suffer. And
Mm.
unfortunately, that's how they do it. They leave you to suffer a little bit, and then they try again, and if you're not open, they leave you again until you kind of, they leave you to fasting.
Suffer fasting.
Yeah.
So just by being open to those ideas, already helping for your future selves, your future lives, that you have this remembrance.
Yeah, just entertaining the ideas.
Okay.
And then there are, of course, spiritual exercises and meditations that help even more, but I mean, they're complicated and you need to be very stubborn on them. You need
You
to really
want to
keep.
develop it in this life already.
Yeah, well, there is the possibility. Yeah, Rudolf Steiner says you can do the exercises for 100 times, 200 times, even after 50 times you can develop it if you have been open to yourself in the previous life. And I'm going to give a very good example because I love this exercise and it's not very hard. Now, in this moment that you're listening to that video, try to tell yourself, call your name into your head. Hey, Christine, now you're listening to this outrageous video of Teo and Astrolada. In my future being incarnation, I don't know how I'm going to be called. Remember yourself in that moment that you're listening about the concept of spiritual science and hold that thought that you're trying to send to your future self for at least 1 minute. And then when you reincarnate, you've already sent something into the Akashic records, which will be searching itself. If you do that at your age 32, it would meet you at a certain age because there's laws of the 7 and 7 ages. So if I send that to 32, probably I'll meet it around 30, the age of 30. If I send that thought when I'm 60, I'll probably meet it when I'm around 15, 16. So it depends what time of your life you send that, and that certain time of your life, it will be received by your future self. And because your ego is here, it will remember it, it will take it through reincarnation because the ego is the only one who takes substance and keeps it in the third body. So that's a very easy exercise, but the problem is actually remembering to do that when you're doing your life. Let's say, since I learned that 4 years ago, I've done it probably 10 times.
That you
So
focus
yeah,
here.
that you very
Remember
focused.
this moment, remember this moment.
And you can even tell yourself, I have 2 children, I'm an astrologer now. So you're actually sending your biography to your next life. So here, when you remember in the next, you say, oh, I was actually a woman. Oh yeah, and I learned astrology. And then you remember your North Node, where it was. And then you can actually relate with your past life's um, destiny to your future life's new destiny, and if it was actually fulfilled in that relationship between one and the next incarnation. And then you can say, I actually left something undone, and you can help your destiny to achieve it if you still need to achieve it.
This is brilliant. And a lot of they're saying that time doesn't exist. So it might be parallel. You might be sending it to you right now, living your future life, parallel to this.
Yeah,
The time space continuum that gets it at the relevant age.
into a wormhole, like they say in
Yeah.
science. Yeah.
You just
Well,
the most important thing here, it seems that the exercise is concentration, the ability to concentrate for longer,
yeah,
concentrated thought. Mm.
yeah. And I think something that came out with COVID is that in the vaccines, actually illnesses is in our life, and especially in young age, getting sick, having the flu, and etc. It's the way how karma and spiritual beings again put us in positions when we cannot run away. Let's say if you're a child, you cannot take supplements and say, I'm going to run away from that illness. This is how we repay something that we did. And now I have a very good example that I stumbled on by Steiner. If we ate animals in future lives, when that animal dies and the soul experiences being its life being taken away for someone to indulge on um, taste, they come back as bacills, bacills,
Bacteria,
bacteria,
viruses, bacteria.
and they go into our intestines, and uh, that's how we start repaying the shape between. It's because bacteria is between animal and plant. It's not one or the other, and that's how we repay the indulgence on eating animal flesh and or torturing someone. And they take us in the moments of young age where we cannot run away.
But
That's
you
why,
have those children's illnesses that they're trying to eradicate, like the mumps, and because you're paying off karma, so you're better off later on.
yeah, and it's actually karma is not that you suffer and you're in bad mood, but it actually grows you away. Let's say there were certain diseases, anthroposophical medicine has them very well written down in books, and practitioners do it. Some children's illnesses that they vaccinate about are actually stopping the development of children when you vaccinate them. And then the child cannot grab that quality because a certain illness brings only certain quality that destiny cannot say, okay, we'll just make him sick on something else. Um, and it was one about being when you're sick with that illness, it takes all the proteins of the mother away from the body of the child that they switched when the child was in the womb, and that's in the moment where the child becomes independent from the
Oh.
mother because it takes off all the proteins. It says, "Okay, mommy, I'm growing up," and
Oh,
then you have a child who is not a mommy's boy, how they call it,
yes.
and
It doesn't carry so much the karma of the ancestors with it.
yeah. And nowadays there are vaccines about that. My child recently we thought it probably has it in the kindergarten, but I completely forgot the name of it.
The smallpox,
And
mumps, not smallpox, chickenpox.
it was yes, it was exactly one of the poxes.
The other pox is when actually it helps certain spiritual aspects of you grow, and as you said, on the physical level, proteins get
Yeah. So
thrown out.
everything that's expressed in the physical level actually has a relationship with the spiritual soul quality. Because people who don't have smallpox in that way and they didn't leave the proteins, they're probably more connected with their family, or too much with their family. They are 40 years and they still live in their house and etc.
Mm.
Which doesn't mean it's bad and everybody needs to have chickenpox. It's just a way of looking into things.
Yes. Yes, amazing. I even read Rudolf Steiner says that he was very sick as a child, and there was something that he was overstimulated by sounds and everything. I don't know if you remember. Uh, and after the sickness, that's when his psychic abilities and clairvoyance started to develop. So sometimes children's illnesses or other illnesses are there to unlock certain qualities in us, like
Yeah.
exactly like the example.
I think even Eckhart Tolle is a very good example about that. When he was in his Saturn return, in the end of his Saturn return, he was about to kill himself. I mean, his story. And then in the moment that he was doing it, he got this flash. I mean, he had very bad 5 years in the past and etc. So he suffered a lot. And I mean, look at him now in his situation. So
And
yeah, suffering has a certain role to play. I'm gonna go through some other points because I know everything's super interesting. I'm
I
telling you,
know,
I
ridiculous.
have a
This
book
stuff
and I'm taking notes, which is the most interesting for the video of Astrolada. Let's see.
amazing.
So another quick one. People which never took interest in music are going to be born probably with some lung issues. And I mean, this is when people say, oh, music is stupid. I don't want to hear anything about music. There's some kind of relationship about being able to enjoy probably classical music more real type of music with the vibration of the breathing after that and with the lungs, which momentarily gives you understanding about the child who develops asthma in early age. It tells you what probably happened in the past. And now music can be introduced in a healthily loving way to that child so you kind of improve his situation.
Oh, so for people with breathing, lung issues, asthmas, best some classical music to the rhythm.
Mm.
It makes sense, and sometimes doesn't mean you hated music in your past life.
Yeah,
You
no.
don't have you lived somewhere where those which
Yeah.
rare, but
Yeah, so people don't say, well, that means all Africa or all the people who are sick by lung, they never liked music. It doesn't mean that. It's just giving a pinpoint
Mhm.
about certain connections. Like something very interesting, Steiner explains very broadly that karma when you are female, you are feeling, you are very passionate, you are heartily loving, very broad, and that every deed of that you're doing and you're living as a woman actually turns you into a man in your next life. So the saying "man is the karma of woman" is very exact. And when a man is very muscular and he thinks about business and he's just going very outgoing, he's making his woman body in the future. And he says, but there's a trick to it, and usually it's with men that it's more. A person can be reborn as a one gender 7 consecutive reincarnations, but no more than 7.
Mhm.
And this is only if he's able to think with the Christ or with the spiritual way of thinking, which means nowadays we are um, we are left into the way of thinking that we take from our parents or we see from society. We don't say, wait a minute, why am I thinking like that? I need to evaluate my thinking and make my own models of thinking. When I'm able to completely destructure and structure again my thinking capacity and ability, then I'm coming out from the men way of thinking, female way of thinking, and then I'm not working with that law of turning into a woman, let's say for myself. So I might be born as a man in my next life again, or freely being able to choose by the qualities of my etheric forces, which and what kind of a body I will need
So people
to
who have independent, critical, and creative thinking, they have more freedom to choose their gender in next lives, basically.
be, because when you go into the spiritual world, you get into a relationship with an angel. And the angel says, okay, what you need here? You need to be a musician. Okay, you'll need a guitar. You'll need to go to America, etc. And if you're able consciously to say, okay, but can I go when I'm 30? No, when I'm 27. Then you start writing the notes of your future. And he says, nope, here you don't have a choice because you're too low in your spiritual development. I'll choose that for you. So it's like, again, you're saying to the dog, don't pee here because it's not allowed. We're going to pee there
Yeah.
into the other park. And if you're conscious enough there, or if you worked enough for spiritual development, you're able to negotiate with the angel and archangel, etc. But if you haven't developed that independent thinking, he says, well, I cannot have a conversation with you because you don't have an independent thinking. So the angel is going to choose everything for you.
Oh my God. That makes so much sense. It's beautiful. So it spiritual work is and growth is not necessarily sitting there meditating, arming away, yogging it up. It's very much about living, developing your thinking, developing, you can do it through any profession, in any lifestyle, critical thinking, creative, and applying it and questioning and introspection. It's a lot of people are doing a lot of spiritual work without even realizing they're doing it.
Yes, exactly. So spiritual work is not necessarily something that it's super strict and super odd. It could be in moments that you're not even realizing.
Mhm. Or
Um,
concentration. If you're
yeah,
someone who's, I don't know, coding and you have to really focus for 2 hours while you're coding and concentrate your thought.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
again, that's wow. So God has given us many, the Creator, many ways through our everyday life to get closer to Him and to develop those spiritual
Oh, we cannot run away from God. He's the biggest bonsai.
forces.
And another thing, a difference between karma and having joy in life from something. Joy is actually not karma or dharma. It's a God's present. When we're joyful, it's because there's a being around us giving off himself. It's not because we deserve joy. It's because God loves us indefinitely.
So we don't do joy with how we eat and, and supplements.
This is, yeah, enjoy, I mean, enjoying, if you know these moments when you're in nature and you're like, wow, life is just amazing. I think that's joy.
Yeah, that,
It's when you're enjoying food, it's just pleasure.
yes, or yeah. Okay, okay. This is some kind of a moment of unity, epiphany.
Yeah, yeah. It's
That's
like
not because
you're,
we deserve it or we've lived chaste and morally. It's by grace.
yeah, it's by grace. Thank you. Very well. Very well said. And a way to easy off karma is by accepting a situation that, let's say, you broke your leg and like, oh my God, fuck this. What to me? And this is actually stopping you from actually saying, okay, now you're going to rebound from karma. Actually, oh, well, if God says that needs to happen, probably I deserve it. Then, yeah, okay. And that's how we become stronger. And the karmic debt might be lowered down by acceptance. And here I'm mentioning again Eckhart Tolle because he talks a lot about acceptance. And it has quite a lot to do. It's not easy, especially in the moment of suffering, but it's quite it's a relief for the whole process of
Like Ben Saduno Peter Dunov says, if you're grateful for what when you're suffering, they'll go away fast. If you're grateful for the good things, they'll stay longer.
yeah, yeah. And just to see, this is the probably I'm gonna finish with this. Can you tell me what time? How long have we done?
We've been going for an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah. No,
No,
I
an hour. No, an
no
hour.
no. Yeah.
Okay,
Because
it's fascinating.
we there's one very outrageous thing, but I think it's very relative to the age that we live in. And it's how actual organs transform into other organs. Like I talked about the fingers and the teeth in the past video. Let's say this is one that I kind of, by meditation, saw by myself. So that's not Steiner, but I'm going to say something that's Steiner. So the kidneys in our life now and how we manage fear, how we manage the adrenal glands and adrenaline, drinking coffee, and etc., being scared about certain things or stressed. It's all being seen by the kidneys, and they reflect everything that happens. And the kidneys are the organs of Venus.
Mhm.
So when they take all that information of their life in future in our body, they will be our gonads. So
Uh,
they are a lower organ. Sorry.
So the kidneys turn into gonads in the next life.
Yes.
What is
Yeah. Gonads are slivici. There are
ah,
two organs here.
tonsils. Tonsils.
Tensils. Oh,
Tonsils.
oh, sorry, maybe.
Gonads is like a sex organs.
Sorry. Then it's my mistake. I meant the tonsils.
Okay.
Um, yeah, my English came quite bad here.
No,
The kidneys turns into the tonsils, yes, because they were organ of the will, and they turn into an organ in the head, which is not of the thinking, but they are part of the head. And since everything below the larynx from the body turns into something part of the head,
Mhm.
so everything that you do in your life with the parts below, actually in your next life turns into a head. So if someone looks into the eyes, the eyebrows, the nose, the teeth, you are every time you look at your head or in your brain, everything inside, the whole thing, you are seeing your past. Like Petr Denov says, whoever has thick eyebrows, he has very strong will,
Yeah.
very strong. So then in previous life, you see, oh, actually, probably I was thinking a lot. That's strange. Well, if we remember, the doings turn into thinking. So if you have strong will now, you had a very strong thought in the past.
I'm coming with the unibrow next lifetime. Strong willpower with all the thinking.
And nowadays with these cosmetic changes, I mean, let's say many women are taking their eyebrows out, so they're thinning out their will. That's very strange. Or anytime you put something in your lips, the lips is the parts of the sensitivity and the feeling realm of the heart. So these women actually probably need to want more something to feel more sensibility, to be more sensual. And they're trying to put it in a way of outside, they're not really embodying that. They're trying to bring it somehow without really putting the effort into it. So it's very important. Everything that we do to our body it's an inner quality that we want, but when we make it out, we are losing the capacity of developing it as a strength in us.
Wow. Profound.
And the outrageous thing that I had a hard time accepting by Rudolf Steiner is I'm gonna make it's a three incarnation process, but I'm gonna make only this only half of it, and then I'm gonna tell you the rest. So the heart, our heart and our lungs in our life, in our next life, turn into the pituitary and to the pineal gland.
Our heart, lungs, and
That's it, the heart and the lungs.
okay, turn into the pituitary. And
So that's why the breathing and the heart and what we feel is very important, because the pituitary and the pineal gland are the organs who are the bosses of the whole body. They tell the heart how to beat, and they balance everything. And they are the qualities of super sensible experiences. So that's why Rudolf Steiner gives the meditation about the heart chakra and about the heart and how important is the heart, because you're actually developing a very important organ in the future. But the heart is developed by, I have a hard time saying that, by the sexual organs in the previous life.
okay, why not? It makes sense. If
It
you
makes
have
sense.
novo, if you didn't abuse the sexual organs in this lifetime, you're gonna have stronger heart.
Exactly. And
That's
this is where the Holy Grail comes from. That there is many people talking about the Holy Grail is actually the sexual organs, the Solomon seal. That's the sign, the esoteric sign for this for the Holy Grail is the Solomon seal, the six-pointed star. And
David,
it's actually, sorry?
David Star.
Yeah, it's both of them. They
Yeah.
both, yeah. And this is where the female and the male mix. That's where love is being made. But it's actually a whole process, because the Holy Grail was a cup, and the cup is the skull. That's why they used skulls for drinking when in the Tsar killed the other Tsar, and he took his skull and he drank from there. But actually, the Holy Grail is a process of the sexual organs being purified. Then in the next incarnation, the heart is being able to accept them all and give the feeling and share it with the social realm. And then the heart is being transformed in the clarity of seeing of spiritual sight with the pineal pituitary gland. And then in the fourth incarnation, they're probably become the healers of humanity, the uh, old grannies that are somewhere in the mountain, and they come and say, please help me with my spine, and they heal them.
Wow. So it's so important to pull the lower energy of the sexual organs to transform it in this lifetime, if possible, to, or not to abuse the procreative process.
Yeah.
For spiritual development later on and for
Well, we are probably in our past incarnations already related to that process, consciously or not. But I really had a bad time accepting that, because I have Scorpio ascendant, and
that is that your weak spot?
yes.
It doesn't mean stay celibate. It means channel it to direct to the right one person and rather
Yeah,
than around
yeah.
it.
I guess if I was very abusive, I wouldn't even understand the ideas that I'm talking about.
Sorry?
I think if I was very bad in the past with sexual abusement, I wouldn't even understand what I'm talking about now.
No, your brain wouldn't have the clarity. So, but even I read a lot of initiation books that I find I know how correct they are, but the process always starts by finding a soul mate or kind of a intellectual and spiritual connection partner in the initial stages, so they can be like a rock for you, so
Yeah.
you don't waste those energies anywhere.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's, if you can't find, stay alone, but if you can find, that's a big blessing for the
Yeah.
education of the lower
Yeah.
sexual organs.
Well, it's interesting because in the path of initiation, it's being said that the moment when you're initiated, your past and individual biography is no longer, it doesn't matter what you did. If you have children, you could be an initiate and you had children, but the moment when you're initiated by the Christ, it's your biography, just you start anew, even in this lifetime. That's why John and Lazarus, it just changes. He becomes John and then he lives and
Oh, he was.
starts.
So a Lazarus that was resurrected is actually the high initiate John the Baptist. No, not John the Baptist.
No,
John the one
evangelist,
who did
the apocalypse.
the Apocalypse Bible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
All right. Yes, yes. And also Saul at Damascus turned into Paul the Apostle.
exactly. Yeah,
You're even given a new
a
spiritual
new
name.
name. Yeah, that's why
Karma's
in the
deleted.
well, yeah, it's no longer important. I mean, that's why they when they called Jesus, wasn't he just the one, the son um, of a carpenter? Wasn't he just? It doesn't matter. He's no longer Jesus. He's the Christ.
Yes. Like being
Mm.
Saduno, they went to him and some friend of his from the past. Oh, Peter, what do you think? He says he doesn't live here anymore.
Yeah,
Peter is not here.
yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, so I think I will end. We can end on this note because I have five
Yes,
more points.
topical would make this video so long. I can't wait again to have you here. Teo is a veritable master of esoteric knowledge. Well, you've mastered it really well. And every time I have a problem and I share it with you before, and you give me a different perspective, and it really helps me see things from a higher spiritual perspective, not just some psychological angle. It's really different spiritual perspective. And Theo is amazing at counseling, and I'll put a link below for his services and also for the course that he offers. So it's so important to have a cosmology, an idea how this world was created, the hierarchies, so you don't feel ungrounded. Once the moment you understand the cosmology of the creation of humans and the high hierarchies and the low hierarchies, you find your place. There is this groundedness. And for me, that's when I discovered it 20 something years ago. That's what grounded me, and a tree grew up from there. And I found my mission. Astrology came after that, and so on. So I think it's very important to start with people clarifying their world, their cosmology, because we have either myths or some scientific clarity of the Big Bang, which is so disconnected from the need of the soul to feel to feel its importance, to feel its connection to God. And this is the foundation to build your spiritual cosmology first, and build the rest on top as a foundation. So anyway, if you'd like to connect to Theo, putting both his lectures and his personal contacts, for his great pedagogy, what's that, like education as well for children and parents, but only just to have a conversation with him, to 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 see your problems or your experiences or your karma from a different perspective again. That might be very helpful for you in healing. Thank you, Theo. Any
Thank
closing
you, Lynn.
words?
Oh, thank you. You did the perfect ending.
Okay. All right. Have a great day, everyone.